Welcome back to my adventures here programming my Atari games. Um, I'm moving my stuff. I back up my stuff constantly. I won't say it's a tip solely for the realm of programmers, but back up your stuff constantly. I noticed when I was looking through discs that I had made over the years, that I had backed up pictures of my kids and my family like dozens of times. A lot of them, there's only maybe one or two folders full of newer pictures or newer videos, but so I have them. I, impulsively kind of, obsessively back up things constantly, and it helps. I've actually had situations where a computer. Oh, well, I dropped my laptop one day. I was stupidly carrying my laptop up into my attic with a pillow that I sometimes will sit and watch, TV or I'll watch the Weather Channel that plays music and shows the weather radar, and just listen to the music and kind of, maybe I'll play guitar, or I'll write poetry or do something. I'll do something off to the side while I'm watching that. So I'll put a pillow down on the floor, like a throw pillow, not like a sleep with your head on it pillow, but a throw pillow. And so that day I was carrying my laptop upstairs opened on a throw pillow, and right when I reached the top of the steps, the laptop kind of tilted a little and then fell. And it didn't work. It stopped working after the door. But it didn't crack, didn't break. The screen wasn't cracked or anything like that. It just stopped working. And recently, that's the laptop I fixed. But the point is, I had backed up, 95% of whatever was on there, and it wasn't really too much of a loss. I had an old laptop that someone was mad at me one day and punched it, and it broke the screen. And so I was using it hooked up to my TV all the time for the internet. And I wanted to repair the old one that I dropped. So, took it apart, checked everything out. Nothing seemed to be broken. Everything seemed to be okay. And so I went ahead and looked up some information about that model and just came to the conclusion that it must be the drive. So I bought a new drive for it. I found out, I remembered what the original OS was. If you have like if you have a laptop that comes with, say, Windows 7 Home or something, or Windows 7 Pro on it or something, and then the hard drive messes up, well, there's still a security key on that laptop for Windows 7 Pro. So if you get a hard drive that has that on it ready to go, it will install it and then automatically activate it because it's the same OS that came on your laptop. So I did that with this one. It had like Windows 10 Home, I think, or something. And that's the laptop I use for internet now because the screen works, everything's perfect on it pretty much. So I can, instantly disconnect it and carry it around if I want to. So that one's been repaired. But yeah, back up your stuff. And what I just did was backed up all of the work that I've done over the past few weeks, and backed up all of the artwork that I've done recently. So I've been working on lots of stuff for my game, and one thing I've done is I tested the water with 24 pixel tall. Another tip I'll give for when you're programming is if you're starting to program and you're thinking, okay, well, I'm about to experiment with some idea, and it may or may not yield positive results. That's when you copy all of your work and put it somewhere. In the case of with Visual Batari Basic, I will just copy the folder that my work is in and then paste it right in the same little group of folders where my work is, and then rename it 2 or 3 or whatever. And that's what I've been doing with this fighting game. So I truncate, and I have 4 different versions of this game that I'm just kind of picking at. If you don't do that, then you'll do a massive amount of code and then realize, oh crap, this isn't going to work, and you're going to have to figure out what you did that did work by deleting and redoing everything. So, for instance, and this is definitely a tip on programming, is on the Atari you're dealing with cycles, and that's how many, that's the time the processor is accessed and provides material, and everything you do uses up cycles, and you want to use up as few as possible. So to cut back on using up cycles, that's refining your code. So when you start originally coding a game, for instance, like the first one I've done here, this is probably one of the least efficient as far as using cycles goes that you can do, because it's go subbing for everything. And if you're just go subbing, especially with bank switching on these games, that eats up a lot of cycles. You can actually look it up, but the difference is pretty astronomical. I think you might use 30 some cycles for a normal go sub, and it might be 250 cycles for a bank switch go sub, and it stacks up fast. And you'll know there are ways to test how many cycles you've used. There are like built-in set parameters up here where you're doing set kernel options, optimizations and stuff. You can set it up to debug and show cycles, like debug cycle, stuff like that. It's in the manual, and that will like either change the score bar color or will like flicker the screen once it has exceeded your normal cycles. But you'll see it anyway. It's already something that'll happen. If you program your game and you just use too many go subs, you're going to see kind of a jump or flicker kind of effect going on every once in a while or constantly in your game. So what you want to do then is turn go subs into go tos. Wherever you have a go sub that's reaching out to grab information, turn it into a go to, because that uses much less cycles. Eliminate go tos if you can. Jam as much stuff into the same place in your loop as possible so that the information is going. One way you can do that is use variables as much as you can to control things. For instance, if you want to put all of your art in different little labels, well, that's going to be a different place that your loop has to go, which is going to need a go to, at least to get to that place, unless it's all streamed together. If it's all streamed together, you're not using go tos. You don't then you don't even need those labels, because it's all just streaming together. But then, of course, most of the time you're not going to want to do that. So what's better to do is assign a variable to each of those, and then say if it's this variable, then activate it, and then put it in your main loop. Then you're not using any go-tos. You're not leaving your loop to go grab stuff. So as few of those heavier cycle-laden processes, the better. So you don't want, and so what I did was experimentally, and I'm going to be refining this process too, I eliminate as many go subs as possible. Now, one way in this case, here you look down here, all of these go subs are a possibility, and really it's only going to choose 2 of those go subs, then it's going to choose a third one. So 3 go subs that are leaving the bank to go to a different bank is it's like 800 cycles, which is way heavy. That's way too much. Now it does work, and it's not it's not really exceeding anything yet, but I'm pushing it. So the best thing to do, and this is what I started to do over here, is pack everything into their own banks, so that when they're go subbing, they're not go subbing outside of the bank to another bank and then coming back, because that's heavier than just within its own bank. Okay, so you can see here, these go subs don't have banks on the end because they're within their own bank. And so I put all of the first instances of the characters in a bank together with the first instances of the other characters. Now, why are there so many of these? And that brings me to the main point as far as the programming in the game goes for the video. I have started doing different color variations of the characters, and I came up with an idea. I was sitting here thinking, what happens, you know, just, it's midnight and you're just playing around with stuff, right? What happens if I have one player 0 first instance sprite overlap the other player 0 first instance sprite or second instance sprite, combining them to see what I can come up with. What I wanted to do was see if I could come up with a third or fourth character for player 0, and then maybe a third or fourth character for player 1. And I ended up coming up with 2 extra characters. Now this is a character, let's see if I get it. The character on the left is a designed character. Now she doesn't look right. She looks a little Frankensteinish. And I thought it looked like a girl. Maybe it doesn't look like a girl. But that is Ryu's body, his first instance of body color, mixed with Chun-Li's second instance of body color, as you can see. So, and I went ahead and to clear up any, you know, real problems, I'm actually breaking the cycle count in this, as you can see. That's because the counter for the propeller that's on the helicopter is a funny count, and so I need to either raise or lower it by 1 so it's an even number. As it's counting, it's actually an odd number, but I think it finishes the count on an even number, and that's going to confuse stuff. When you have things moving in chunks like that, the computer will have like a leftover number that it has to deal with, and when it does that, it cuts it down. It says, oh crap, what am I going to do? So this new character, I'll go ahead and zoom in. Alright, this new character on the left was made by combining Ryu and Chun-Li. And you know, it's a Frankenstein character. The one on the right is, of course, the standard Mai that I came up with, that I really love. I love everything about her. And then this new character here, like I said, is actually a combination of the frames of the 2 player 0 characters. So this gave me an idea. What if I make the player 1 character compatible with, or I should say the player 0, but the first player, the player 0 and or the player 1 sprites, try to make each of the frames for both characters cross-compatible, so that there's a frame for Ryu, and then his body goes with that frame, but then there's a second frame that can also be used with that body, and then that will generate the second or third character. And it seemed to me like, well, it'd be a feat to even do that. It'd be very difficult to even be able to do that, but I'm trying. So that's been the experiment that I'm working on today, is to come up with a character that that can be made from one frame from one character and the second frame from the other character. Now, she looks a little funny. She's having a Frankenstein effect going on because the 2 frames are not congruent with each other. But what I did to kind of balance it out, if I could, was use the missile sprites that come with each character, and I reshaped them and put them on the character to fill in gaps. So I tried this with the Mai character. Oh goodness, I think it's 4. I'll have to look. Yeah. I'm on TV. There we go. Now the one on the right is made from Mai Shiranui's, or Shai Marinui. It's made from her clothing and hair and face sprite, and made from Barry Togar's pants and upper body and arm sprite. They're overlapping. So the feet were messed up, so I put the missile sprite down at the bottom, and they ended up being kind of like boot cuffs on the character. She had a gap in her waist. So I put the second missile sprite in her abdomen as her waist. And so that comes up with this extra kind of amalgamation of the two mashed together. Now, it's not complete. There are still problems. As you can see, there are gaps here that haven't been filled when she squats down. Things aren't lined up. They have to be lined up. So I have to go in there and line everything up to get it to work. But that gave me the idea, what if I try to make the frames cross-compatible? And it's difficult. This isn't something I can, guarantee that is even going to be possible for me. It's something that the artwork takes kind of a process to create. And I'm going to try it. That's what one of the next things I'm going to do is going to be, because it would give me a third or possibly fourth character on each side, equaling 6 in total, possibly 8 characters in total. And so what it means is I have to make a kind of a general purpose frame that's maybe a body, right? And then have the accent frame, maybe the face and the arms or skin tone parts, stuff like that, be exclusive to that character. And so that would allow me to combine one frame with another to make Ryu, and then another frame with that same one that was his body to make a second character, like what I did here. And this would be kind of a trick to, produce more varied sprites. Now her hair on the left, the blue on the top of her hair, is actually a missile, and then her back has a missile to kind of fix a gap that was there because there was missing stuff. So it's not, like I said, she's kind of got a Frankenstein effect. For instance, if you look, there's blue under her feet when she does her little hop here. That I can't really do anything about because that is Chun-Li's foot stepping. And so that's what made me think, hey, what if I get rid of that foot stepping part? And then I thought, well, what if I just totally redraw characters so that they are, swappable. And that was what the point was. Now, as you can see, the propeller of my helicopter is spinning. Okay? Now, I love it. It's what I was talking about doing in the last video to add kind of some appeal to this to make it look cool. Now, the cycles are flipping out because, like I said, I've got an odd number count going with an even number limit. And so I'll need to change. I changed it on the other one. So this is actually effectively the second, that's the number 2 truncated program with some things changed to see how they work. My original program doesn't have the 2 Frankenstein characters, but it does have the color variations. So every one of these is a color variation of each character. So if I scroll up here to go through each color variation, I don't know if you can even see that because the camera's still zoomed in, but I'm at the top of my code. I'm manipulating the variables that control which character is displayed. And so here are the first 2 characters. You've got Ryu in kind of a grayish gi, and then Mai, her normal Mai look, which I really love her. She's my favorite of all. Her fights are really beautiful too. Her fighting moves are going to be really cute, and I'm looking forward to putting those in there. Okay, this one has the propeller moving slightly slower. That's what it looks like with an even count, and as you can see, the screen's not freaking out. It's not like hiccuping constantly. Now it might have an occasional hiccup, but that's more because I haven't refined the go subs and go tos to be better less cycle intensive. And that's going to be one of the next things I do. See, it just hiccup. So obviously I need to make sure that there are a couple of problems. There are a couple of little problems that'll be worked out with. As you can see, she steps there. That's actually her limit. But again, because counting is either odd instead of even, or something like that, then it can exceed that limit that I put on there. And so I need to go in and refine the code so that that doesn't happen. Now they can see they just bumped into each other, but see there they went through each other. That's because their starting XY coordinate, when added with their movement, actually exceeded the collision detection. It went past it probably because it was an odd number, and it exceeded the collision detection. So a couple of things need to be refined so that that's not happening. Now, of course, I'm happy with how the game is just as it is with the color variations because it adds some flair. But to have 3 characters on each side having a total of 6, or to even, somehow miraculously have 4 characters on each side with a total of 8, and then have color variations on top of that, to where Ryu could actually be Ken, or with a color variation, that's all too good. So I'm going to actually be trying to do that next. So my background has got that spinning propeller blade, and I think the faster blade is a little better, so I might actually change this to a higher even number. Right now it's going in 2 pixel increments. It was 3 when it was freaking out a lot, and if I move it to 4 it will move faster but probably won't freak out. Okay, now to show the code, and this is kind of crude, it might be in a different place later, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out for this. This uses the playfield pixels. I'm going to back up a little bit. No, that's actually there. Maybe. Anyway, here we go. Before it reaches out, here it's go subbing to get the graphics for the air yard. And then after that, but before it draws the screen, it is going to manipulate the data that it just drew from the air yard. Now I might put that manipulation somewhere else later on when the banks are all merged and I'm having the go-tos within their own exclusive banks to free up cycles. But as you can see, hopefully here, and actually I think I'm going to try to zoom in a tiny bit on that code if I can. I don't know if that's helpful. Anyway, what we've got here, L3, that's the level for the air yard. It's leaving to go to bank 5. I think it's in focus. And then we have the PFH line going on. It says, if L equals 3 and E equals 1, and A is less than 17 and B is greater than 13. What that means is if A is 16 or B is 14, these are both the even numbers that trapped the propeller, then A equals A plus 2, B equals B minus 2. A is the left side of the propeller increasing to meet the middle point. B is the right side of the propeller decreasing to meet the middle point. E is actually being used to turn off and on the rotation animation. So then we've got, if it does all that, then A equals A plus 2, B equals B minus 2, PFH line, and then in PFH line I'm not using numbers, I'm using the variables that are constantly changing numbers. PFH line A, Then 2 is the y-axis, which doesn't change for this line. And then B is the right side of the propeller, or the final point of the horizontal line that you're drawing. Now, if all of those conditions meet, and then it's saying on means turn that line on the playfield because it was off to begin with. Now, if it's on to begin with and you tell it on, you're not going to see anything. You would then say off instead, but that's not the effect I'm going for here. Else, and then after else, it's resetting every one of those variables so it can be used again. So once A reaches 16, and then B will also be reaching 14, so then they all reset. Then E resets to 0, A resets to 0, B resets to 0. Okay, but then, and that's actually something I can change. I might go ahead and change that because I just realized that that might not even be necessary. The second one is definitely necessary though, because E needs to be reset again. So now we've got if L equals 3 and E equals 0, meaning it has completed one of its animations. So it says if L equals 3 and E equals 0 and A equals 0, meaning that first line has completed one animation. Then, and now it's resetting the points, the starting points for the propeller. E equals 2, that's the beginning of the, kind of near the left side of the screen. A equals 2, B equals 28, that's the full right side of the propeller. And then E equals 1, meaning do the animation. So all of that combined is causing that propeller to spin. That's the, and it's 2 lines of code. I could probably go ahead and whittle it down to 1, possibly, maybe, but I don't know because I want to obviously use E to turn off and on that propeller. Now, all of this bank go subbing is really heavy, and I don't like it. I need to fix it. So to fix it, in my experimental one over there, in the second one, I have moved all of the first instances of the sprites and their levels into one bank, all of the instances of the second frame of the sprites and the second frames of the levels into their own bank. And then the only switching is actually go-tos going through the different blocks. And I'm going to be doing that again later, only refining it to try to get it perfect because I really don't like having to use the bank go subs. But it can reduce stuff. So it actually reduced the amount of 8th bank space that I had, which is used for graphics, and I can't have that. So it's a balance. If you have to use more cycles so you have more room for the graphics, then you have to have more cycles. As long as you don't exceed the system's cycle count, then what it's capable of, then you'll be okay. And you can use the customizations for speed to help out slightly. There are things you can do, obviously, to speed it up. Now, the best thing I can do is use everything as go-tos. So, and that would be very, very difficult, but eventually, after the code's been refined as much as possible, I might be streamlining this. Now, to do only go-tos and to keep it fast, you know, you want as much happening in one bank as possible. You don't want to have to jump to another bank to do too much. So, so yeah, it's a process of elimination where you're like, how do I eliminate this go sub or turn it into a go-to or link everything together? And when you start out, your code might be like this one. It might be crude and need refined to be able to get it exactly where you want it. The more cycles I free up, the less chance of the game, you know, jittering or skipping or flashing or whatever might happen when cycle counts are exceeded. So if you do a game, if you're programming a game and you realize, oh, this thing is you know, jumping and shimmering and flickering and freaking out, well, you've totally stressed the cycle count on the system and it can't handle it. Okay. So in this one, I have moved everything here. Go to A block 1. This is the first instance from the first bank. Here's where things are reset. And so the first block is now in the 6th bank. And as I go down here, here is that 6th bank. Right here, bank 6, A block. It starts with the left side player being not reflected and the right side player being reflected. So that's how the game normally starts. After it runs through this cycle one time, this loop, then this will be adjusted based on the characters themselves. The only external bank is for the controller code and for the XY variables for the character. That's it. So that's the only time it's actually go subbing outside of that bank. All the other go subs for the characters no longer have banks because they're within their own bank. The first instances of the background are within their own bank. So as I did before, I will change. I'm going to try this at 4, and just to see, maybe it won't freak out as much. Now this left me with a slight amount of 8th bank space, but it also required that I remove a couple of sprites that I'm going to need to figure out how to put back in later just to get it to go. It said, oh, you're eating up way too much space by separating all of these things together, cramming them all in one bank. So yeah, it's a trade. Now if I have to go from one bank to another to keep the flow going, that's not as bad as everything go subbing to outside banks and then returning with the information, which is the most cycle intensive process you can do when programming it. It's too much. And I can see this is much, yeah, it's still got it though. It's still freaking out. Now I think the reason it's freaking out too is the math for the missile sprites is constantly being updated. Now when you use a missile in a game, it might be one missile and then you're telling it to just go across the screen or go up the screen or something. Like if you got a little spaceship and maybe it's shooting a missile up or as a bullet and it's going to hit another spaceship. The other spaceships are shooting one back at you. That's not too difficult for the system to handle. But what I've got are 2 for the character that are constantly being resized and constantly being adjusted in place based on a variable that is the XY coordinate of the character. That's pretty heavy for the system. It's hard for it to keep up with it. Now, with the normal fighting moves of the characters, then those things will only be on and moving when your character is punching or kicking. And so that's way, way less intensive. It's not going to cause as much cycle. And so that's how it's going to be. Right now it was just, hey, how do I fix these characters up so they even look okay? And but yeah, this background is kind of freaking out a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to change that counter to 2 instead of 4. And I imagine it's still going to do it because the character's missiles are freaking it out. Yeah, it's less, but it's still going I'm moving the character around a bunch because that's also eating up the cycles, because it has to calculate the new placement of the missiles. And yeah, I'm getting kind of a shimmer. Now if I change the level, that doesn't happen, and that's because the math for that propeller is enough to jog it and say, hey, what the heck's going on? I have also changed my first background that was called the dock to this city, which is too green. I might change the colors a little later, but well, I want to zoom it, but I want to show the whole picture. Oh no, there we go. Okay. This is done with the 2 different frames and using PF heights. PF heights is creating the bars across the right side building and the windows on the left side building. It's also creating the smaller lines for the street in the background. The dumpster next to in the center there, that's next to the right side building, that's what I'm calling it, as a dumpster, is actually made by using the ball, the playfield ball, so close to the right that the color taints the presence of that. Okay, actually that might be no, that's a playfield. That's 2 playfield pixels, and actually the color is created by the brown, which is the ball. So the brown, that's the shadow side of the right side building, that brown strip that's the whole left side of the right side building, is the ball. And then a playfield pixel, which, as you can see, it's the same height as the row of color that's at the bottom of the right side building. It's also the same height as the door on the left side building. Once that was activated, because that ball was behind it, it has that extra color to make it look kind of more 3D. I like doing little tricks like that to kind of squeeze as much out of the background as I can. Now this background is not freaking out at all. There's no anything going on. Looks like their collisions worked really well right there with my 2 freak show characters. So, now I need to change. As you can see, the missile sprite that makes her boot cuffs isn't correct now since she's facing the other way. So I have these commands that regulate the placement of those, and those are changed based on whether she's reflected or not. So if I change places with them, you'll see that let's see here. See, now it's in the right place. So as far as refining the look of that, I've went in and adjusted the ball placement, or the missile placement, to accent the character, but I haven't done it with squatting, jumping, and flipping. And it will also have to be done with every move, and that's where it's just a chore to try to figure out how to use the attack frames from another character and then mix in stuff to make it look different enough to be a different character. Now I think the left side character looks enough like a different character to not really say right away, hey, I'm just reuse Guy frame mixed with Chun-Li's frame. It doesn't, and the hair is made with a missile, some gaps and stuff. She looks like a fresh enough character to where it might actually work. But the one on the right, I think, you know, just looks like Mai with some pirate boots on and maybe something in her hair. But that's what gave me that idea, is to try to combine them. So I came up with some artwork. I'll go ahead and back off here. If I can, just to get it. I think that's pretty close. See there. Okay. So working on the artwork, I've made a ninja possibility here that's made of Okay, he's kind of, now this would be, I think would work as the gi frame, but I don't know. Okay. Also made me think about just making a whole bunch of ninja characters, have a male ninja body and a female ninja body, and then just put it on both sides, and then have the first frame be different. So have the first frame be whatever's different about the characters. Then I can change the colors and change what they look like. And that might be a future game. I might later on release a game that's the same as this one, only with, you know, like 16 different ninja of different colors and genders all fighting with each other. So the more characters the better, obviously. So here's his step frame, or standing frame. I've got the names of these two mixed up. There we go. So this would be him stepping. Now what I do is I add an extra pixel underneath them, an extra row of blank pixels, and that's what makes them hop just slightly whenever they step. It makes it look better. They don't look like they're just kind of slinking across the floor when they move. The other one, and this is a more viable choice here, I think, is this girl. Now this girl, if my theory is correct, could be made using that as her flesh tone and hair frame over the Ryu Gi frame. So her second frame would actually be Ryu's second frame. And then that would make it so that I could get two characters by only using 3 sets of frames instead of 4. And that would be great. You know, it would be really, it would be cool, because then having 3 total characters on each side, 6 characters total. Now this might all end up being something I do later. This might be too much to try to do with this particular game right away. But the frame I'm talking about would be, let's see, I'll just compare them real quick here. Okay. Okay, here are the 2 frames compared with each other. And you can see where I've kept much of her look within the confines of the limits of the left side. Now, it's kind of hard to tell what would happen here because these pictures are reduced to a single color. So Ryu over here, when he's up on the screen, his arms and face and feet are all white. They're all the same color, or whatever color you plug in as that single frame. And when that is overlapping the other one, the other frame, which will be a darker color, then that's where you get the outline and the flesh tone and the hair. That's all happening from the second frame. So the one on the right, that will actually be her accent frame. But because it will overlap, you'll get the flesh tone where you see flesh tone. You'll get the overhang for the skirt, and the hair and stuff will all happen when I put that frame over the frame that you're looking at on the left. Okay, so it should work. I mean, there's really no reason why it wouldn't work. Now, what's the drawback? Well, her moves all have to be the same moves as Ryu's. So, so she'd have to have Hadokens and helicopter kicks and the same kick and punch stuff that Ryu has. Now, what I can do though is change the way they work. I can make her fireball slower. I can make her walking faster. I can make her jumping faster. She can end up being a lighter, faster character, but have weaker attacks and stuff like that, or whatever. I can make her stronger and slower. That doesn't matter. I could also do different color variations to create an extra character. So perhaps I could change her hair blonde, maybe make her skin dark. I can change things around and maybe possibly squeeze out extra characters. They're going to look just like recolors though. And you know, there are some characters out there in fighting games that are popular that are just essentially recolors of others. There are at least a handful of, you know, of Sakura clones out there in different fighting games where if you just tweak their hair a little bit, then you could use essentially just a varied version of Sakura's body and would be the same. So I could do that and possibly come up with a handful more characters than just 2 on each side. And that's what my goal is here, is to come up with as many characters as possible, but using within the limitations of this. Now, the guy said something to me, and this was really great. Probably, you know, it's a great thing when this happens. I had another programmer, what's his name, Major Havoc or something like that. Anyway, I think that's what his name was. He commented on, you know, he had done he's been programming for a long time too. He said that he loved watching my video, which, I mean, that's the greatest compliment that I can possibly get, because if I get over 100 views on a video, that's just you know, that makes me feel wonderful, because I don't pay for views. I'm not rich. I'm not an influencer. I'm not anything like that. I'm just, you know, nerdy dad trapped in a house. What do I do? So yeah. Now him saying that, you know, it's inspirational, but it also helps me feel like I'm not just, you know, in the middle of the ocean surrounded by sharks with a paddle and, you know, floating on some cordwood. It makes me feel like someone is out there. And there, you know, the other comments are great too. I got comments from a guy who's making Atari-like games. I think he made a game called, like, I don't know, Pigeon Pooper or something. Some game where pigeons crap on everything. You're throwing. I think the game is you're throwing poop back at the pigeons. Like I guess if I was mad because of pigeons, maybe I had a sports car and they crapped on my car and it ate away the paint or something. So I go outside and I have maybe like a t-shirt launcher from a football game, and it's full of excrement, and I'm just shooting it at pigeons to pay them back for what they did. That's the concept. Now what this other guy did though, that said he loved watching my videos, he also commented about methods to turn each bank into something that can hold graphics. It involves, he said he uses the super chip to point to the address of the sprite. And then the sprite can be data within any bank. And he said he did that to make Doom. He calls it a Doom demake. Of course, anyone that's putting Doom on anything 8-bit, you're demaking it, because Doom was like a pretty heavy mover. Well, back in the day when it came out, I remember, of course, I was alive then, and it had... Actually, I remember playing Wolfenstein 3D when it first came out, and everyone was losing their marbles about it. It had started that whole craze where they felt like they needed to start labeling everything because of the violence in the games. Wolfenstein started that, and I was a teenager. Anyway. So he used it to make Doom, what he's calling a demake of Doom. Here we have Chun-Li in her standard colors and a recolor of the Terry Bogard clone. Okay, slower moving propeller. So he said that. He said, oh, well, what I did was I used the super chip RAM to point to the graphics location, so the graphics could be a data statement instead of what they've woven into Visual Batari Basic, which is a player 0 or player 1 that then fills in with rows of data that are your pixels. It's very easy to use. probably memory intensive, and it does pixels in a square. So it makes like a kind of a cube shape, which I actually like. The normal sprites on an Atari can be one sprite, but usually they're double wide no matter what you do. Even if they're 1 pixel tall, they're double wide. And what he's done has kind of a scan line appearance, but it's single width sprites, and they look good. And you can tell what it is. That's one of the neatest things about it is you can tell, hey, this is Doom, you know. But now that was one problem I had with the 7800, is the 7800 just does double wide. And I think the 800 and 400, the XL, XE series, a lot of those 8-bit computers, to be able to kind of fit as much as they can on the screen with less memory, is they double wide pixeled everything. And what that does is it makes it so all the original 8-bit pixels are all flat, kind of thin, wide pixels. They're 2 pixels wide, but 1 pixel tall. Now, when they did this double wide pixel effect with Visual Batari Basic, I think when they did it, they were trying to limit people from making things that were the same resolution as arcade games that known programmers had made. But I think what it ended up doing is just making everything look better, because the wide, flat, thin pixels don't look as good as a completely square dot, which is uniform. And so whether it frees up space or whatever it does for the game, I like them better. I like square pixels. Now, by that rationale, I also like the super chip backgrounds that are 23 rows or 32 rows, because those make the background squares look more like uniform squares. I'd rather draw the picture with uniform dots than try to draw the picture with flat, long rectangles everywhere. Now, the flat, long rectangles, that's what's going on if you look up at the boxes that say US on them. Well, if you want to know how wide a 1 pixel wide, 1 playfield pixel wide space is, then just one tiny little chunk of that letter. So at the top left of the letter U on the box it says US, that's the width I'm dealing with. The width to the left of it, that's the left side of the box, that's the width of one 1 pixel wide playfield sprite, or playfield square. Now, when you want to know how wide they can be if you use a 23 row or 32 row, well, it gets larger, but the whole thing becomes kind of, I don't know, it just makes it look better. It looks better. So, because you're drawing everything with basically perfect squares. And let's see, Pacman, that's a great example of that. The first game my youngest son, was ever into, because he's very little, he would watch us play Pac-Man. We have arcade in our living room. Some of them are cabinets that we made, and a couple of them are actual arcade machine cabinets that have had multi-carts put in them. The older one, that's a RoboCop cabinet, has a 60-in-1 iCade multi-cart, so it has those original games. It has Pac-Man, and he would watch people play Pac-Man, and so Pac-Man was the first game he was ever really into. So that says SD on it. Huh. Anyway. So we let him play it, and he fell in love with that game. It was his first video game he was ever really into. So I made a game called Pac-Nick. And I'll just go ahead and run that real quick. this is for, there's a point behind this, I guess. Here we go. Yeah, okay. Now this is a game I'm working on for my son that uses those super chip playfield pixels. Now this is just the title screen I made. The ghost changes color, runs back and forth and stuff. And here is, okay, now notice that the dots he's eating are perfect squares. The background is made of perfect squares. I haven't done the animation for his mouth yet, and the ghosts are all waiting there flickering like crazy. Once the ghosts come out and start moving around, they're going to flicker less, but it's always going to be flickering because of the way I did this. There's no way to make the extra characters not flicker. But as you can see, there's a red cherries with a green stem with a glare on the cherries. Pacman actually changes direction when he moves up and down, not just side to side like the original. Now I need to go in and program the extra movements so he can eat the rest of the dots, and then I can program the ghosts moving around and stuff. But this is using perfect square playfield pixels through the super chip kernel. So this is what you can do. Now you could also use colors, so every row is different colors and stuff like that. You can, but that's what you'd be dealing with, and you can come up with a pretty nice looking background. Something I wanted to try, just for fun, on my faster computer here. Here we go. This is Doom 2600, the demo of it. He did an effect with the Atari symbol where it kind of spins up there. I think that's pretty neat. Okay, I think you start out with the shotgun. Huh. Oh. Darn it, I'm shooting at nothing. Oh. There we go. Now, in the original Doom, and also based on Wolfenstein, the character would look left or right, based on, oh goodness, based on who attacked him. So the face wasn't just there for fun, it was there to show you what direction the attack was coming from. And I think he might be doing that, I don't know. Now, this is a feat, because now there's the blue key card. Oh crap, where did it go? Did I get it? Or just coming up with something like this for the 2600. So he did this using changing where the memory pointer is so that super chip RAM, which you get when you use a super chip. Now the super chip has limited use RAM. You can't just have it do anything, but it is useful. Now what I use the super chip for is extra variables, because it sets up a higher resolution playfield that you can use. It lets you basically, it starts you out with a 32 row playfield that you can use. Now if you decrease the amount of rows in your 32 row playfield, then you can the extra space safe for it becomes available variables. What do I need to do here? Do I need to hit a button? Let me see here. Oh, I'll hit it. No. Maybe it needs to use a second button or something. I don't know. Need to figure it out. I'm running. Oh wait. Okay. Huh. Now he said change the phosphor in your Stella configuration, and that can reduce flicker and shimmer and stuff. But what, you know, and of course it's not flickering as much for me seeing it here as for you on the camera. On the camera, this is going to look like it's just flipping out, you know, and that's because the two sync rates are so different. But it has a slight shimmer to everything on the screen. The map doesn't shimmer, the bar at the bottom doesn't shimmer, but everything drawn up there has a slight shimmer. Now on a normal TV, that could be significantly less, but in emulation it's different. And I've noticed that certain things that I do look better in emulation than on a TV, and they sometimes look better on a TV than they do in emulation. So when you're programming for people who want to play these games like Sega, Atari, Nintendo and stuff, it's kind of, you know, it's impossible to please everyone. Can't please everyone all the time, right? Someone that only plays Atari using their emulator on a computer, you know, well, you don't want to make a game that's only for them. Because then if someone says, oh, I put this on a Harmony card or on a Uno card or some kind of multi-card and it sucks on a TV and I can't play it, well, that makes it look bad. And if you only make it to look good on a television, then people will say, oh, I tried this in Stella and it sucks. So you can't win here. And also, that coupled with all of the different TVs that a person can have. People can have the variety of CRTs and HD TVs and plasma TVs and every kind of TV you can have. It makes it so, well, okay, when you get ready to play a modern game, what you know, 100% of the modern games you play do right before you play it for the first time? Adjust your game so that this is visible and this is invisible. Adjust your brightness so that you only see this in this picture and stuff like that. That's because there's so many different varieties of output from, you know, computer monitors, television sets, and anything that could be coming through that they can't know. And so what an Atari programmer can then kind of expect, and hopefully people can be, you know, able to understand this, is that your results may vary. There's no way for us to know exactly what the game's going to look like based on how you're playing it, and you might have to uncomfortably be ready to adjust things to get one of these games to look right for you. You know, you might have to tweak the brightness or tweak the contrast of your television or color or a combination of those things to get any of these games to look the way you want them to look. And so what I usually do is I will tweak my TV to look good for a Sega Genesis game and then for a Nintendo game, and then I'll try to make my Atari game look good under those conditions. So I know, hey, if you're playing old school games like Sega or Nintendo or something, then this should look okay on your CRT with little or no adjustment. But there's no way for me to know. And TVs are so different. Some of them really handle the brightness and contrast differently. There are more modern CRTs that handle contrast really, really well. Like the one I have upstairs that I test on, my games look fantastic. But then I have a really, really old, like, you know, late 70s CRT. And it's hard to get them to really look great on that TV. Also, the systems are different. An original heavy sixer has more available color usually than the 4 switcher or the light 6 switcher or the 7800. They all handle color palettes in a slightly different way. And within that, they can be adjusted. The color is adjusted per system and per variation of system. So it really is impossible. It is literally impossible for me to know what the game is going to look like on your system. You could have it really thick, rich, blurry, kind of dissected colors, but it looks really clean when you play it, but it's vibrant. Or it could be really low color and really sharp and high contrast. It could be anywhere between any of those kind of things. So, and Stella as good as it is not a absolutely perfect emulator. And you know, if you're only using Stella to program your game and then you just say, okay, I'm done with my game, put it on your TV, that's the worst thing you can do. You need a handful of systems, handful of TVs. You need to try it in as many different ways. So I've said this on a previous video, but I try my work on a Flashback 2, a Flashback 9, a Flashback Portable. A lot of my games don't work on Flashback Portables. Those are really picky. I try them on computers that use emulators, on Z26 and on Stella. I try them on a 7800, a Coleco Gemini, a Vader 4-switcher, a Sunnyvale 4-switcher, a Heavy 6er, a Rainbow Junior, you know, all of the different systems that I have that you might have, as many as I can. You know, there's no way that I can know how your system was adjusted in the factory and how it will look on your particular television or CRT or HD or whatever. So progress has been made. This is, as I'm going through these color variations, I have one that might actually pass for Ken. This is the color variation, the first one of Terry. And I'm just going to run through these. So even if I can't do 6 or 8 characters or something using mishmashing of frames, I can do color variations. So here we have kind of a blondish looking, more tan skin tone version of Mai, and we have a red Gi with kind of yellowish looking hair. Hey, maybe that's Ken. Now, perhaps I could take the missile that's that hair color and then just put it right behind his head to make it look like longer hair. You know, I could probably do that, and then hey, look, it's Ken, because he's got longer hair and he's got the red gi. So that's a possibility. But for him to fight against Ken, there's another couple color variations. For him to fight against Ken, I would have to change the way the program is so that player 0 or player 1 can both use the same sprite. And that's something that is a little more difficult to do, but I might try it. I might go in and actually try to change things around. It would involve changing my sprite data into data instead of the way it is now, and changing the pointer to where it can reach out and grab any sprite data regardless of what player you are. So here we have the pink Chun-Li, which is her second player color variant, and a dark skinned with lighter color suit Terry Bogard. And of course I can also use zoom, and I've tried that, and make a big hulking massive looking character. I did 6 color variants for every character, just to kind of see what I could squeeze out of it here. There, I like this one. There's a blue Gi Ryu with lighter hair, and then a blue outfit Mai. Now the cycle count's okay right now, and once I start using fighting moves, it should still be okay, but I still want to refine the code to relax some of that heavier cycle count use. These are the last color variants, and that's where my original Terry color I think is trapped is in the very last one. So yeah, here it is, red and blue. And then a dark Chun-Li with a darker red outfit. And this background I particularly like. I really love how it turned out. Now the color behind the characters, it affects the color of the character. So he's brighter, the Terry Bogard clone there is brighter here than he is on the military, the air yard background. I think his flip's really great. It's visible. See, they switched, which I can't have that. When they turn around, see, they switched again. So that's the math that's making the collision detection miss its little count. So yeah, being able to get 6 characters out of it would be really useful. Now, okay, on that note, that was one of the points I made this video for. He said, okay, well, you could do this. Point to memory, use the memory pointer from Superchip RAM, and then change your sprite to data. And I could do that. The only problem is, I drew all of my graphics using square pixels. So immediately, a single pixel wide graphic would look significantly different. All of the characters would be short and kind of squat looking, almost like chibi characters. Also, with the amount of code that it's going to take to program AI for each character, that really might not even be feasible. There's a good chance that once, and it's a good idea though, that's why I said that's something that would be really great to know how to use in the future. I do want to know how he did that, because it would be very useful for me. But at the same time, the more space you take up with graphics in the code, the less space you have for code. So there's a good chance, you know, okay, just jumping around and moving on the screen is, see if I can find it, is right here, okay? Starting right here in my verses, all of this. And that's just controlling the possibility of characters, their colors, their places, and colliding with each other. And it's not quite perfect just yet. I need to change things to even numbers to help cut back on problems with collision. And this is the joystick. So just that. Now there's plenty of room though, but everything also takes up clock cycles. So it eats up space. Once every move's little segmentation and timing and stuff is programmed, once everything's programmed for the AI, for the opponents to fight with you, there's a good chance that I would not have had any additional room to plug in extra graphics if I used graphics data and a memory pointer from Superchip. But that's not, you know, 100%. I might be wrong. It could be that I end up with an entire bank. And if I could use data and point to that data, that's, you know, twice as much graphics. So that's, you know, that would be way, way, way better. Now, the amount of space it takes up and all the constraints, what the characters would end up looking like. For instance, back on the game that I just played, okay, using there we go. See how they're kind of like, it's single color and they're squared pixels and there's layers. And it's pretty shimmery, kind of flickery. It's pushing the system because the cycle count is it's still within the limits, I'm sure, but you can tell it's kind of stressing the system, which of course it would. This is a lot of moving graphics going on for a 2600, and this is a pretty impressive thing. Now they just came out with this on the Atari 8-bit computers, and I told them, hey, this looks better than those, and it actually kind of does. It has a better variety of enemies. It shimmers more than the 8-bit computer version, and I think the 8-bit computer version is possibly more complete. I don't know how to open doors. Well, maybe the key I have doesn't work on that door. So yeah. It even says exit right there. Oh, there's a bad guy. Yeah, I mean, it shows the bad guys on the map. Got blood. Huh. There's a blue door. Okay. Oh, there's the chainsaw. So I mean, you can tell, once you figure out what's going on the screen, you've got a map, you're moving along, everything works the way it's supposed to. Pretty impressive Atari game, really. Even, now what would I do? Me, if I was doing this, I'd probably try to go for more solid colors, less graphics. I would probably not have the face, which would make it distinctly less Doom-like. I'd try to make it take up as much as the screen, but I might not be able to do such a cool looking interactive map, you know, stuff. This was done in a very good, creative, and also kind of like all-encompassing way. It's got the walls, it's got the map, it's got, you know, your health or whatever, it's got your visible weapon you're using, and it's even got a cardinal direction there. He says you're going east, south, north, west there. So yeah, bravo, because this is pretty cool. I'll probably try it on a TV and tweak things around just to kind of see how it looks. So this uses Superchip memory pointer for your graphics rather than your normal ROM. And the ROM traps everything in the 8th bank as far as graphics go, but what that would end up doing is making it so your graphics can be in any bank, because the Superchip RAM can access any bank at one time. Now I've also got a lot of these kind of hacks going on here now that I'm on the subject. These are hacks other people had done. We have Flappy Bird, Galactopus, that was a great one. Flappy Zoe. Some of them are hacks and edits. This one was one that uses the similar method of graphics that I use. This is one of the best homebrews like anyone ever did. Now it might be shimmery a little bit on your end, but here it looks pretty solid. Now that's arguably one of, if not the best looking combined color sprites ever done on a VCS. So it's got the music. And as you can see, these are combined colored sprites. Now, how do I know he's doing this the way I did? Well, Mario is kind of transparent. That means that these are it's a layering effect. He also made it so that the screen scrolls upward. You're not seeing the entire playfield. That's to maintain that higher resolution. Oh. Now I'm sure this was done in assembly, but using a very similar method that I use, where I combine things to get a third color. Now probably one of the best ones out there, other than that Donkey Kong, which is really great, is the Pacman that came out. There's an 8K, there's a 4K. I think 8KD was my favorite one. Now this one's even more pencil-eating Pac-Man here. Great sound effects. This is just a really great game. He even managed to eliminate a lot of the shimmer and flicker that you get when your horizontal rows are taken up. They ghost, to coin the phrase. The ghosts ghost slightly, but they don't flicker like crazy. Oh, you got me. So yeah, that's an amazing game. Everyone's heard of Princess Rescue. That's your Mario one. Now if I did this game, I would do layered color, and I don't know, maybe one day. There we go. Now you can shoot, see? Pressing up. Pretty solid game. I think I've beaten this game. We played it a lot back when it first came out. Really great game. The remake of Xenophobe just will always be one of my favorite games. And it's actually in its own folder up here. And they made different versions. You can pick what character you want. And if you've seen the original Xenophobe, phew. See, this guy looks kind of like Zissou, Steve Z. Now, the amount of improvement that was done on this game, well, it makes you wonder what the programmers of this game were thinking when they made it, because it was so terrible. The cartridge version could have been this, and it really should have been this. This is what should have happened. When they made this. If it could have been this when it first came out, then it should have been this, because this is so much better. The characters are all, they look like their arcade counterparts. The original Xenophobe is terrible for this system. It's just really not good. But this, with the graphic changes and the cool looking characters, this really is a much, much better game. Getting all the different varieties of characters you can pick. the bad guys really make a big difference. I'm in here. Get off me! And I'm getting slimed. Okay. Just trying to grab a screwdriver, people, leave me alone. Try to grab the zapper that's a really great one. There it is. Oh. And of course he knocks it out. So now I'm going to show my game. And this is Titan X. You can turn the sound off and on. There we go. With the right difficulty turns the music off and on. So yeah. Now in the new version of the game I make, I'm using totally different methods. There's going to be less backgrounds, 3-color graphics, better looking, higher resolution backgrounds. Every character is going to be 3-color. There won't be the lines of color like what are, most Atari games are like. So, see, I think that's in the screen there pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and play this. Now, when I programmed this game, I put a ton of like secrets in it. There are warp zones and health refill zones. Now the robot guys, the little bad guy robots, every time you kill them, a fairy bursts from them. In the story, this bad guy catches fairies and then uses them to power those robots. So every time you blow one up or break one, a fairy pops out of it. That's one of the secrets where if you, after the 3rd shuriken goes by, if you run up the screen towards what's supposed to be like a temple with 2 statues of warriors on it, when you run up the screen, it refills your health. So. Now, of course, the newer Titan X that I make is going to be different. This one, the background is actually supposed to be. That one's background was supposed to be like faces of people that are crying, but it's like waterfalls coming out of their eyes. And a lot of these creative backgrounds are going to have high resolution translations in the newer version of this game. There we go. Didn't really need to do that, but just to show it reset her health. Had I been injured, then that would Now this one is supposed to be hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. As you can see, there are 3 faces, and the one on the left is covering his ears, the one on the middle is covering his eyes, and the one on the right is covering his mouth. Okay, so every background that's like that kind of has a meaning behind it. Now, when I programmed this game, I used the blank lines. I think it was so I could have more player colors or something, but now that I have this 3-color method, I don't need to worry about that. So now that I know how to do that, that frees that up, so I can actually get rid of the blank lines. I'm just having a great time here. Now, I recorded this whole game at the end of this video, and then I looked back and my memory card had run out of space. Now, the reason my memory card ran out of space was I had deleted videos from my memory card, and And then when I looked at my card, they were still there. When I took my card out and put it back in. Now, either I recorded something and forgot, I guess that's possible, or it screwed up. And so I'm like, fine, I'm just going to leave the stuff on there. Well, then I ran out of space. This time, I deleted everything off of it and then, you know, put it back in and out of the computer a couple times and checked it out to make sure. Because that's really annoying. It's annoying when your card doesn't delete things when it said it did, and it's annoying when you run out of space and you're trying to record something. So see, that's two faces with like a cross next to it, and the faces have like water coming out next to the eyes to be like waterfalls. In the new game, like I said, I'm going to use less backgrounds. It's going to be a smaller game, but they're going to be higher resolution with no blank lines, so it should look considerably better. That enemy is supposed to be a gigantic worm. That's a pagoda. Now, the programming techniques were kind of, you know, I won't say entry level, but I know things now where when I program this game again, it's going to be significantly better. And it's going to look better. Like, that's the main difference, is it's just going to look better. There's going to be way less levels, less screens, but the screens will look much, much better. The bad guys are going to look way better. Here we go. That's a warp. Okay. That's a second warp. And the next screen after this guy is a ninja. And then the next screen is the last level. This was supposed to be like a pyramid with an eye blinking. So I plan on having that in the newer game and be, you know, much, much better looking. I really don't like the blank lines, and there are techniques, like I've been showing in these videos, to eliminate the blank lines. So that's going to be something that's not here in the final game. In the new game, I should say. I'm going to die. Yeah. Huh. There we go. So even though that happened, I can still use the warp. I'm using a keyboard here, so I'm used to playing it with a thumb pad joystick on a TV. I've beaten this game probably, you know, a couple dozen times. And ideally, you want to save as much save as much of your health as possible before you reach that last guy. He's set up to where if you have 5 health points, you can beat him with magic alone. And your total, I think, with a full bar is 6. So yeah, it's a curve. If you have full health, you can beat him like it's nothing. someone said once that the hitboxes weren't right in this game, but the hitboxes are absolutely precise. When you swing your weapon and it hits the bad guy, that registers a hit every time. Alright, here we go. There we go. That's the game. So I've beaten the game. After you beat the game, you can press a direction, and when you pause the game too, you can press a direction on the controller to hear one of the 5 different songs. So that's me holding left. And that's the Fairy Queen who he has trapped. Once he defeated the bad guy, then the castle explodes and she is chained to the floor of the castle. And I'm thinking in the new version of the game I'll have her break free and then fly up in the air or something cool like that. Now when I made this, I wasn't really thinking of how this picture might be perceived. Now the way it looks is, you know, she's not clothed and she's got fairy wings. How it's supposed to look is she's got her little wings popping up, but then what's under the wings there on each side are her arms, and she's chained to the floor, and the chain is connecting her arms together in the middle. And what it ended up looking like, you know, is kind of a little more gravure than what I intended. Why is she saying yay? Because she's actually half of herself. The one sprite is the left side, then it's mirrored and put up next to it on the other side. And so above her head is the letter Y and half of the letter A, and then that's mirrored and put together. So this game was published briefly. I had what could be called a falling out with their, well, I made 2 other games and I wanted a game to be published, at least to be considered or even looked at. It would have been one of the first, if not the first, DPC Plus games. And I was told that it was going to be checked out over like a year, and no one checked it out. So imagine, if you will, someone telling you every month, yeah, I'll check that game out, knowing that you want it to be considered, and then they don't check it out. And you're watching all of the, you know, game shows go by and stuff like that, all these, you know, expos and things going by, and my games aren't being seen. So yeah, we had a falling out. And then this game was removed. But, and I honestly, I didn't program this game to get rich or to make money, but I did want to get my foot in the door as a legit homebrew programmer, and I wanted to make a game that was unlike anything that had ever been made on the Atari before. And I think I succeeded at that. So yeah, there are 5 different songs in the game. In the new game, I'll use the same songs, but I'll use variables to attenuate the volume and to change instruments so they sound slightly better. So yeah, this was my first game that I ever finished, and I love it. It's a great game. It's fun to play. That's something about it, you know, it's just really, really fun game to play. It's got magic, it's got special moves, it's got a ton of bad guys. There's 64 different screens. A lot of the backgrounds are animated. It takes a little bit of squinty imagination to kind of figure out what's going on with some of the backgrounds, but I wanted them all to have kind of a reason and a representation behind them. What you just saw was me warping to the end and beating the game, but if you don't know where the game warps are, and if you don't know how to use the bonuses to get full health bars in certain levels, then the game is actually very difficult. It's not easy. There's a easy mode and a hard mode, and if you beat the game on easy, then it will say try hard. And so you don't get this ending unless you beat the game on hard mode, which I just did. So that's Titan Axe. One of my favorite Atari games. It's rare, obviously. I have a copy because I got one for publishing it, and I think around 40 or 50 people bought it in its first wave. I don't know how many bought it in the second wave, but now in the new one, the words are going to be really clear. The fairy's going to be 3-color, look more like a Nintendo sprite. And I might actually start on this after this Street Fighter game's done, but what I'm thinking is I'm going to finish the Street Fighter game, then I'm going to finish the Ghostbusters game, then I'm going to remake this game, and kind of in that order. The Ghostbusters game is very, very close to being done already anyway, and this Street Fighter game, it has all the moves in it. I just need to plug in the code to get the moves happening, and tweak a couple of things here and there to get it the way I want it to be. So yeah, thanks for sticking with me if you endured this slog through homebrews and my update on my game.